make a lot of form videos. I work on form a lot. I've watched a lot of form videos. And one of the hardest parts of form work, in my opinion, is like actually getting the form change to stick. I can't tell you how many times I've worked on something for like a pretty good period of time, and then I go and play maybe a tournament, and I'll have Ellie take a video of me. She'll video some of my stuff to put on Instagram or whatever, and I'll be going to post on Instagram, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm still doing that thing that I don't want to do, or I'm still doing that wrong, or I'm not doing that thing. There's been like, I can think of 20 different, probably 10 or 20 different form changes that I've had that exact same thing with. And I'm sure many of you have probably felt the same thing. Maybe you're doing field work and you're filming yourself and you're like, yeah, I really want to work on, getting into the power pocket. And you're thinking about it, you're working on it, you're watching videos, you're drilling it, and when you're throwing in your net, maybe you struggle with it a little bit, but you start to get it down, you're like, I got it, and I'm gonna go play around, film a couple shots, see how it goes, and then you film yourself and your arm's way out here. You're gonna revert back to what you know. You're gonna revert back to the habits that you had. Like, you have to find a way to make it work. And like, how do you do that? I mean, obviously, if you look back like a year ago, my form is significantly different. I've obviously made changes, but like day to day, how can I fix something today that I was doing yesterday? I kind of want to talk a little bit today about some of my strategies that I use to do this, because I think this is the hardest part of form work in disc golf, is like actually making it happen, like ingraining it in your brain. And it's not just as simple as we'll just go out and practice. There are some tools and some tricks that you can use to make it a lot easier. And I actually, before I want to go over any of that, I actually want to talk a little bit about like why it's so hard to do this. So if you know anything about the human brain, to my understanding, there's synapses in your brain that are firing, and they have little spaces between them, and between these spaces you form neural pathways. And when you learn something, like say when you're a kid, you don't really have a lot of neural pathways. So when you're like learning language, you're starting to create neural pathways about like how to make noises with your mouth, what certain words mean, how people react to certain things that you say. And then you kind of build those up, and then we can talk, we can say things, we can communicate, and we do that with everything. So if you're starting playing disc golf as a kid and you have someone who's able to teach you how to do things right, you're gonna form all these neural pathways, which are just habits on how to do things correctly, which is why it's so important when you're learning to learn the right way, because once you've learned it, it's really hard to unlearn it. And the thing about neural pathways is that once they are formed, they become habit, they become second nature. When you're creating them, you have to put in the work to like create that habit, to like learn it, to try it over and over and fail. But once you eventually get it, you know this with anything that you've learned in your life, it starts off difficult, but the more effort you put into it, it eventually becomes learned. You eventually be able to reproduce it without really putting in the same amount of effort, or even any effort at all, compared to like when you started doing it. And so I like to think of an analogy where there's a couple analogies you can use, but the one I like to think of is, imagine you're in a jungle, and learning something is like, taking your machete and swiping away at this super dense, thick brush. And you're creating a neural pathway. That's learning, that's creating that pathway. And once you create that pathway, you have this path that you can go back and forth on, and that's the form thing. It's your off arm, it's your power pocket, it's whatever you've learned how to do. I've created this pathway that is doing this thing, and now I'm gonna do that because that's the easiest thing to do. There are other pathways, which are gonna be maybe my elbows up a little higher, maybe my off arms are in a different spot, maybe my feet are doing something different. Those pathways don't really exist because you haven't gone through and swiped away all that brush. You can do that, but if you're not really trying to, you're always gonna go down the path that you've already created. And so the reason why learning things is so hard is because once you've learned something the wrong way, or the way you don't wanna do it, you already have a neural pathway. You already have a habit formed for doing it this way. So for me, the big thing that I've been struggling with is I'm basically, when I'm reaching back, my off arm's coming way back here, where I kind of want to keep it more inside my body and efficient, compact, tight, and all that. And I'm having a hard time fixing it. That's kind of why I wanted to make this video. And I've created this pathway over years of playing. It's funny because when you look at old videos, I did used to kind of keep my arm pretty tight, but somewhere along the lines, when learning how to reach back properly, I kind of got my arm out of the way and went way out here. And I probably threw into a net a lot of times and did a ton of field work in that time. And when doing that, I created this neural pathway, which is my arm goes out here. And now, even when I try to think about it, maybe I'll first couple throws, I'll get it down, but once I stop actively trying to do the thing that I'm trying to do, I'll always resort back to the thing that I don't want to do. And that's because I had that neural pathway. So I have to employ some sort of tactic to sort of get rid of that old neural pathway, make it as obsolete as possible, and employ this new neural pathway, this new habit that I will do easily without thinking. And I'm sure many people have done this correctly. If you've done form changes that have been successful, if you go watch old videos of yourself, you'll have tons of examples where you're like, oh, I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. I fixed that. I made the change. And sometimes it takes a long time, months or even years. So there's a couple things that I have done that help with this process of creating new neural pathways, creating new form changes. Number one is obviously going to be reps. You're not going to learn something unless you get a ton of reps with it. Like I said, I didn't always do this off arm thing that I'm doing. I just kind of accidentally started to do it because I was trying to learn something else, and it was like a byproduct. I wasn't fixing everything in my form, I was just fixing one thing. And it was at a time when I was doing a ton of reps and just, I wasn't really thinking about my off arm very much. I kind of had it right initially, and then through a ton of reps, I fixed one thing but then broke another. And now that's ingrained in my brain as part of the way I throw the disc. And maybe I fixed a bunch of other things, but that little motion that I do when my arm comes out, that's just there. And so in order to fix that, I'll also have to do a ton of reps, because it's the way I created it was a ton of reps. The way I have to fix it is a ton of reps the other way. So just baseline, you have to be doing tons of reps with the new form that you're doing. That's like into a net, field work, during rounds, and you have to be doing it very intentionally. You can't just kind of half-ass it. You have to really make sure you're doing it correctly. And so to piggyback off of that, the second thing that I would do is create some sort of feedback for yourself. So either be very intentional, so like think about it and pay a lot of attention to it. Don't just go and play around and see how it goes, but like really pay attention to that one thing. Say, I'm gonna play around and I'm only gonna think about my off arm, and that's all I'm gonna think about. Or film videos of yourself. That's the thing that I find really, really eye-opening, is maybe you'll be doing something and you're not quite doing it right, and maybe it feels good, but seeing yourself on video doing it will give yourself a little bit of a feedback of, am I actually doing this? And it'll kind of push you in the right direction to create the habit that you want to do the form correctly. Another thing that I kind of hinted at before that I think is really important is actual rounds. So like, don't just do field work for days on end and then just go and play normal when you're playing. I would do the field work, do the net work, do all that stuff that you do where you're just focusing on form, but then go and play around where your thought is, I'm gonna work on this thing. Because at the end of the day, I can throw into a net and I can throw in a wide open field till I'm blue in the face, but it's not necessarily gonna translate to on the course, because you, like, when you're thinking about throwing on a hole, you've sort of created a habit or a neural pathway of like playing this hole. I don't know if you've ever tried to, like, if you've played a hole for years a particular way with one disc and then tried throwing a different disc on it, like maybe you threw a really overstable disc on a hole. You've seen this in videos where I try to throw a different disc on a hole and I can't help but like throw it on the angle that I'm used to, because I've thrown 100 times with one particular disc. Switching up to a different one, like if I really think about it, I can do it, but if I'm not really super focused, I'm gonna just throw it like I'm throwing an overstable disc, because that's what I've learned how to do. And in the same way, when you throw on the course, you're gonna sort of revert back to what you've done, because you're just used to throwing on these holes. And so you kind of have to like get real like actual practice of playing disc golf to fix those. Same thing with putting. If you're fixing putting issues, I can putt in my garage all day, but unless I'm like putting at a league or during a practice round or at a tournament, like I'm not really gonna know if I've really made that fix until I can make sure I can do it when the pressure is actually on. Because when you actually have that pressure on, that's when you're most likely to revert back to your old ways. And the last thing that I would say is a really, really, really good tool that I've learned recently for fixing things is just to take some time off, to take breaks. I have really not been playing a lot of disc golf this off season. We've got some snow. I'm kind of just taking some time off. I spent a lot of the last off season just disc golf, the whole off season. Basically both seasons blended together. I'm taking time to just kind of sit back and look at it, and I'm noticing a lot of things about myself that I want to fix with my game that I don't think I would notice if I was continually playing day to day. The reality is, when you're in something, when you're actively doing something, it's hard to look at it from an outside perspective. And taking a step back, taking some time off, and just looking at it from, you know, the point of view of I'm not playing right now, I'm just looking at maybe old videos of myself or just thinking about certain things, maybe watching tournament coverage and realizing things that I didn't realize initially. When you're out there playing, when you have to play every day or every week, or you have tournaments every weekend, you're not gonna like be in the right mindset of making these changes. But when you take a step back and aren't thinking about it as much, and it's not so ingrained in your day-to-day, you can realize these changes you want to make, and then with that time off, then you can go and then start to employ them. And that's also been really, really helpful for me. So taking time off, using that time off to reflect, using that reflection to realize what it is that you have to fix. So with that being said, I haven't been playing a lot of disc golf lately. I do want to fix this off arm thing. The big thing that I noticed was that does strength matter video. I really wanted to, I mean, I've had so many videos where I really wanted, because when I'm playing in a video, like, I want my form to look good. I hate going and editing the video and being like, dude, what is that? That looks so bad. I don't want to do that. I've had so many videos where I try to fix the off arm where I'm not sending it flying back and then coming inside. And sometimes that form versus strength video is a great example. The first couple throws of the video, it was great. And then I threw some forehands, and then as soon as I threw another backhand, each consecutive throw throughout the video, it got more and more like my old form until it was trash again, basically. So I want to play around today, and I'm not doing anything else in this video. My main goal is to just fix this thing. And this will kind of give you a little bit of insight into how to do this. I've done the, you know, looking at the videos, I've done throwing into a net, I've done the reps, I've done all this stuff, I've taken the time away. This is kind of like the last piece of the puzzle, which is just making it work. And actually this is not necessarily a form tip video because I've already talked about the off arm, but one thing that actually helped me a lot was thinking about the frame of reference of my body rotating. My arm is just rotating with my torso, and I was kind of trying to like make my arm move more than my torso. And instead of like sending my arm out, like behind me, if I don't think about the rotational part, if I just stand still, I'm kind of doing this. I don't want to do this. I just want to do this. I just want to go up to the side. So if I let myself rotate and then just go up, you know, and then come down here, that's like more what I want to think about as opposed to bringing my arm out. I was kind of like trying to rotate my arm and my body, which just made my arm go way out of the way. And then I had to compensate by coming back in, and it just doesn't work. So kind of thinking of keeping it with my body and just kind of coming up and then down is better. So enough talking. I'm gonna just play a couple holes and really try to work on that. I also think it's better to play, I'm playing the whites here, I think it's better to play a bit of an easier layout just because you don't have the extra pressure, or play a layout you haven't played. You know, just get that extra mental stuff out of your head, the extra pressure. Just like start easy and then work your way up. So see, that was an atrocious throw, my first throw. That was an atrocious throw, terrible, but I'm pretty sure I did the arm thing right. So now, let's throw again, but I'm gonna try and throw the disc well while doing that. All I was focused on was doing this right. And clearly, the stuff that I've done throwing into a net and in the field didn't translate. I gotta fix something. So let's try again. I'm gonna focus a little bit more on actually throwing the disc, not just on that one thing. That's such a weird skip. Okay, that was slightly better. Slightly better. We'll go one more. I think I'm not really getting the disc up in the air. I'm still too focused on the form thing. I gotta get it to be a little more natural.
Editor Tyler here. As I'm putting this video together, I'm noticing just how awful my reach back is throughout the entire video. So if you're seeing this and you're thinking to yourself throughout the video, man, you're messing up a lot of these shots because your reach back is really bad. I know that. I think this is just another example of how hard it really is to implement these form changes and how different things can go when you're trying to work on one specific thing. So just another example, as you're watching this, keep that in mind. It's gonna be tough, you're gonna screw things up, but now next time I go and work on this, I'll say, hey, I gotta make sure my reach back is good. And over time, I'll fix all those little things and I'll be having the form that I want.
Okay, lad, I'm actually gonna do one more because I think my issue is I'm just staying upright and I'm trying to eliminate all other variables. So I'm not really I'm just throwing it flat and I'm throwing it at at that spot over there on the right, but I'm not putting on any hyzer. I gotta throw a little bit of hyzer. So I'm gonna try and just give it a little bit of hyzer, lean into it a little bit, but still do the form. Okay, I mean, those were all terrible, but this is like the process. You're gonna screw up, it's gonna be bad, and you're gonna have to work on these things. I don't often have videos where I'm showing the process of this, but this is what it looks like. It's terrible throws. You have to work on these things. So we'll go pick those up, we'll run to the next hole, and then we'll just keep going. Okay, so I actually went back and watched some of those throws, and I was doing something right, which was I was exaggerating the form cue. I was probably exaggerating a bit too much, which was probably what was causing a lot of the problems. I was bringing my arm way up, just kind of really trying to accentuate this motion, which is good. I'm trying to create that thing. A lot of the times I probably wouldn't do it very well, so I'm really trying to focus on it. I'm gonna try and dial that back a little bit now. I'm clearly able to do it. I'm gonna dial it back just a touch and just try and throw it a bit more casually. Okay, not a good throw. That felt way better though. I can't really tell on video because I haven't seen myself yet. I think that was better. And this is the key to what watching yourself is so important. You know, I put in a ton of work. I've watched myself a lot, but when it came out to playing on the course, I did things like a little bit different. So I had to just tweak a couple knobs and figure out what works for me. Okay, so now I think I've got like the general feel of the throw down, how I want to do it. Now I'm gonna again try to refocus on throwing the disc, like picking an aim point, right? I wasn't thinking about an aim point, I was kind of just throwing. I hit that tree, it was bad. Now I'm gonna try and pick a little bit of an aim point and see if I can still do what I want to do with the form. Okay, I was still off my mark a little bit, but that was better. I got it on hyzer. I pulled it to the right a little bit, but still pretty good. I'll do one more. Okay, now I'm gonna try to go like more like 60-40, 60% really trying to throw it, maybe 70-30, like try to put a little bit more into throwing it, think a little bit less about the form, see if it works out. Okay, and I think I just overthrew the target by a little bit and didn't get it left enough, but that was probably the best one. So we're starting to hone in on a better throw, which is good. That's pretty good. I'm not going to putt any of those or really play them because they were all terrible. We'll go to hole 3, which is actually kind of a gap hit and a straight shot. So that'll be a little bit of a new thing to test, see if I can throw that well. So those last 2 throws were actually like pin high, just right outside the circle, like circle's edge. So definitely moving in the right direction. We're making the changes. So we're going to see if we can kind of build on that here. This is a gap hit, so I do really have to hit my target here. There's going to be a lot more thought about hitting my line, picking an aim point. Otherwise, I'm just going to miss terribly. So this is like kind of, you know, those first 2 holes were kind of, I wasn't really worried about where they would go. I could kind of miss left or right. It wouldn't really matter. Left or right here is going to be terrible. I have to hit it up the middle. And so I'm going to focus on that and try to get the form cue to also be there. And again, this process is extremely frustrating. You will throw so many bad shots. This is why I want to make this video, is it kind of shows that like it's okay to throw terrible shots. It's kind of part of the process. It's part of learning it. And then as you do it, as you iterate on the thing that you're trying to improve on, you will throw better shots, you'll get better, and before you know it, it won't be that long before it's part of your form. Because at the end of the day, you still know how to play disc golf, you still know how to throw. It's just a bit abrasive to get used to doing something differently than what you're used to. Okay, that was actually not that bad. I think I'm definitely finding that I'm just like not getting my angle super well. I'm hitting the spot that I want to hit, and I think I'm getting the form thing right. I'm just like, again, I'm not really focused on like my follow through, I guess. So we gotta now start thinking about that. So we're starting to like bring in all those other things that normally we would do correctly that we're kind of messing up right now because we're focused on other stuff. So now we're gonna do the same thing. This is a bit of a flippier disc, so it'll matter a lot more than that one I just threw. Just try and get it on some hyzer, get the angle correct. Still try to do all the other things that we were doing though. There we go. Much better. Little turned over, but I got it on like a little bit of hyzer. I got it moving the way I wanted to. So a little bit better. We'll do one more. I was throwing putters there. I'll throw my hex though. It should be pretty similar. We also have a little bit of like left to right wind or whatever, which might be messing with stuff. I'm not really trying to think about the wind too much. it shouldn't be too much of a factor. Okay, so what happened there was I was super focused on getting the angle correct, but then I wasn't focused on the aim point. So I got the angle pretty much perfect. I probably threw it a little too hard. I didn't really pick an aim point. And so we went way off to the right, probably went past the pin. That's like the really hard part about doing this, is like getting everything to work together. When you're really trying to fix one thing, it's hard to bring it all together. It's gonna like shift your focus a little bit too much. It's hard to throw a disc properly, and when you're trying to fix a part of your form, it's gonna make other things come off. And so this is kind of the process. I don't know if at the end of this video I'll really have any great throws, but it's kind of like day to day, we just kind of work on it and get better. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this is I am not focused right now. I'm carrying my camera around, I'm thinking about things to say, I'm making sure I get the video done well, I'm kind of teaching this, I'm sort of over analyzing what I'm doing a little bit. It's really important that when you're doing this process that you are focused. Like, I would recommend, if you're gonna go out and play a round or a couple holes even, where you're worrying just about making this form change, I would do it alone. I wouldn't do it with friends, I wouldn't do it distracted, I wouldn't do it during like a league round or a tournament. Like, I really make sure you're like by yourself, you can really focus up, like maybe put some headphones in, listen to some music. This is definitely not the correct environment for me to do this. And while I am using something I'm actually working on to like make this a real process, I'll get a lot more done if I'm just out here by myself working on this without having to like focus on other things. So it's really important to be super focused on this, because you need to like really pay attention to your body and what you're doing and what you're feeling, and keeping that like thought process throughout the round so that you can make those tweaks and fix things is going to be instrumental to being successful at the end of the round. I thought hole 5 from the whites would be a great hole here. Not too far, can get there with a putter, get a little bit of wind, who cares. It's kind of wide open though, and all I got to worry about is just those late trees. But I can really focus on just throwing a nice wide open shot where I kind of have an aim point I want to hit. It's not super important, but really I'm just trying to get like close to my aim point, get my nose angle, my release angle, Anhyzer, just get the disc to come out of my hands the way I want it, while also doing that form change. See, and simplifying everything there, I think that was key there. I simplified what I had to do. There wasn't too much of an aim point. I just wanted to throw a general idea of what I wanted it to be, and that made it a lot easier to execute on a lot of things I wanted to do. And hopefully I can bring that with me into hitting gaps, hitting specific lines. We'll try it one more time with a flip ear disc, so we can give it more hyzer. Kind of the issue I was running into before was turning it over too much, so we'll try and exaggerate throwing a flippy disc into a left to right wind. So we'll have to throw it on hyzer to make this work. That might actually be parked. That's beautiful. Fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted. I was able to exaggerate the hyzer, fix a couple little things. I think I still threw the disc correctly. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I'm getting towards what I want to do, which is fix this thing. Just because this hole has been productive for me, I'm going to throw one more just to kind of really drill home some of those things I'm working on. We'll throw a little more overstable, so this will allow me to relax a little bit, not worry too much about release angle, just kind of let the disc do the work. A little short, that's okay. I think that was pretty good. All right, so those first two throws there were actually both, I think, 20, 25 footers. So definitely my best throws in terms of results. Definitely doing way better than we started. We were throwing into trees, missing everything, missing our lines terribly. So you can kind of see, even over a couple of holes, even while kind of not super focused, how we can, when we're looking at the right things, kind of actively thinking about what we're doing, we can start to make progress towards throwing good shots with our new form. I'm not gonna drag this out through a bunch of holes, but you can see kind of through 18 holes or multiple days of 18 holes with field work, with sort of watching videos of yourself, you can see how this can really build up to really solidifying these form changes. Like I said, creating those neural pathways so that we can remember these form changes, do them in tournaments, not have to worry about thinking about them too much. Since we've been throwing pretty much putters and mids, we have a kind of big open par 4 here. We're gonna throw 3 destroyers just to kind of cap off our little expedition here. This is hole 18 from the whites. I'll finish the hole out for the video because we'll get some throws in afterwards, and then we'll get a little putt in at the end just for fun. But this will be a good, we'll take the, I don't know, we'll take the furthest one and use that to throw our up shot. But yeah, this will be a good little test to see if everything that I've done over the past couple holes is solidified. Here we go. And pretty good timing as the wind is starting to pick up. Wasn't my best throw. I was worried about that flipping into the wind. Probably gave it a little too much hyzer. Let's just trust the disc a little more here. Whoa. Sorry, it's muddy out here. I'm slipping around a little bit. Look at, I don't know if you can see on the tee pad, look at that streak of mud I just created just from stepping after slipping a little bit. I think I just hit that tree that almost put me out of bounds. I think on those first two throws, I was taking it a little easy, just trying to throw it on a hyzer, probably way too much hyzer. I was a little afraid of the wind and kind of messing everything up, but I think I can hit my lines pretty well at this point. I'm gonna try and throw it on a bit more of a flat line, maybe get a little bit of turn out of it with this last shot. Actually, one other note before I throw this last shot, because I think it's pretty important, and it's another part of the reason why some of these shots aren't great. Maybe this isn't the best environment for me to work on this right now. Make sure the environment that you're using to work on these things is of high quality. Right now, it's muddy out. These tee pads are like wet, matted, old turf with mud all over them. I'm like pretty afraid of slipping. I'm not really giving it my all on these shots. My hands are all dried out. Like, there's a lot of reasons why this isn't necessarily a great environment, and also part of the reason why I'm not really playing this much in the off season, because you know, it's cold, it's icy, it's wet. You're not really able to work on form. In the summer with a nice concrete tee pad, it's just a totally different game. But if you are gonna work on stuff, especially in the off season, find a good course, nice concrete tee pads, or just do it with field work using like pavement or something. But try not to put yourself in the situation I'm in right now where, you know, your feet are slipping around in mud all over the place and you're probably just not creating a good environment for yourself to actually learn. It'd be like trying to learn how to code, but writing it down on paper or putting it into Microsoft Word. Just use an IDE. Like, why would you put yourself in that situation? Anyway, my hands are really dry, so this is probably not even gonna be that good. But I'm gonna try to get it a little bit of turn out of it. Hopefully I don't slip. Oh my God, I slipped right away. Oh, it's so terrible. Yeah, honestly, that might have been the worst one of the three in terms of the form thing, but what can you do? I think it's actually, like, for some reason, significantly less muddy out here, even though it's higher elevation back there and like lower over here, but it's like a little bit wet, but not as muddy. I should be able to actually throw the disc. We're gonna use the last one that I threw, actually. It went a little bit further than the other ones because it was on less hyzer. Probably could have gone a little further, but it's okay. Oh, got knocked down. Give it one more try. Try and get a little lower. I think that's better. Kind of slippery. Oh, same thing, just kind of hit the last tree. Well, this looks like it would have been legitimately parked if it didn't hit this tree. It was coming in hyzer, whacked right into this tree. All right, I'm only gonna throw one putt. This is my first and only putt of the whole video. Oh, it just snuck in. Oh my God. That was so bad. Oh, that was like as close as it could have been to not being in. So yeah, that's my little process that I do with form changes. When it comes to any video I've ever made about form changes, this is sort of the iterative process that I've come up with over the years on just how to get better at disc golf, how to make these changes. It's really important to employ these tactics to be able to efficiently move forward and fix these things. Otherwise, you're gonna find yourself just making the same mistakes that you made in the past. I find myself doing it all the time, like I said in past videos. Just find myself messing up at the end anyways. And it's good to be humble. It's good to watch yourself, expect to fail, and be really willing to work on it again in the future. Let me know if you guys like this like different format where I do kind of talk about some form stuff and then take it out to the course and show it. I think it's an interesting process. I know a lot of the throws were terrible, but that's kind of like part of the process. So I know I cringe watching myself, but maybe it's useful. Maybe you hate it. I don't know. Maybe people clicked off the video at this point and there's only 2 people watching. Anyway, thanks for watching. happy holidays, happy new year, whatever. Merry Christmas. I'll see you next time. Peace.